to enjoy your time here and find peace in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. The cold was unbearable. It wasn't the sharp sting on the skin, but more like countless tiny needles packed densely together. Following the torn blisters on the soles of my bare feet, the chill wormed its way straight into my bone marrow, freezing my blood into razor-sharp shards of ice. I stumbled barefoot through snow that reached above my ankles. Behind me, the chaotic thunder of horse hooves and the crackling roar of torches drifted faintly on the wind. Those were pursuit troops dispatched by my stepmother, Madame Kuhn. That wretched little slut can't have gone far. Madame has already given the order. If she's alive, bring back the person. If dead, bring back the corpse. Once we catch her, stuff her into the bridal sedan, even if we have to drag her kicking and screaming. Crude curses rode the freezing wind, slapping directly against my body. I gritted my teeth, refusing to stop. Instead, I used my small, agile frame to slip into a narrow alleyway blanketed in deep snow. I am Shen Li, the concubine, born daughter of the Su family. Just 2 shichen ago, my stepmother Madame Kuhn had forced a bowl of bone, softening powder down my throat for 5,000 taels of betrothal money, intending to shove me into a bridal sedan and marry me off to that idiot son of Li Yuanwei in the east of the city. The one who bites anyone he sees. She had no idea that the only thing my late mother left me was a tattered secret medical manual. For the past 10 years, I had barely survived in this man-eating mansion that didn't even spit out the bones. To protect myself, I had long since mastered the art of using acupuncture to seal meridians. The moment that bowl of bone softening powder entered my stomach, I used the silver needles hidden in my wrist to prick my fingertip and force out more than half the poisoned blood. Taking advantage of the guard dozing off, I climbed over the wall and fled. Footprints marked the snow ahead. The voices of the pursuers suddenly drew closer, and my heart clenched tight. Lifting my head, I spotted a dilapidated ancient temple in front. White lanterns hung at the entrance, swaying precariously in the snowy gale as if they might fall at any moment. With no time to hesitate, I dashed straight through the temple gates. The air inside was dim and gloomy, thick with the scent of sandalwood mixed with rotting wood. In the center of the main hall stood an enormous coffin made of golden, threaded Nanmu wood. The lid hadn't been nailed shut yet, leaving a dark gap. Golden threaded Nanmu. This was a material reserved exclusively for kings, nobles, high generals, and ministers. The footsteps outside had already reached the temple entrance. Search inside. At this ghostly hour, she can only be hiding here. There's nowhere else to run. I took a deep breath, gripped the edge of the coffin with both hands, and used every ounce of strength to flip myself inside. A dull, heavy thud echoed. I landed in a cramped, freezing space. The coffin was more spacious than I'd expected, lined with thick layers of luxurious brocade. Beneath me lay a rigid body, a corpse. I held my breath, shrinking my body as much as possible, not daring to touch the dead man. In the darkness, I could feel an icy chill radiating from the corpse, even colder than the snowy wind outside. Big brother, it seems this temple is holding the coffin of the Duke of Jun. The voice outside grew hesitant. Should we still search it? Duke of Jun. The leader sucked in a sharp breath. You mean that ruthless Pei, the king of hell who kills without batting an eye? I heard he suddenly fell gravely ill and died yesterday. This coffin is being transported back to the capital for the funeral. That's right, big brother. If we disturb the Duke's spirit, it'll be a capital offense. But what do we have to fear from Madame's side? That little bitch isn't even wearing shoes. After running this long, she must have frozen solid already. She might have already collapsed dead in some snowy ditch. Let's search somewhere else. No point lingering in this cursed place. As the footsteps gradually faded away, the tension in my nerves finally eased. Just as I prepared to push myself up, an icy hand as hard as iron suddenly clamped around my throat without warning. My eyes widened in terror. Through the gap in the coffin lid, a sliver of faint moonlight filtered in. I was staring directly into a pair of eyes. These were not the eyes of a dead man. They were deep, dark, and abyssal, filled with unconcealed bloodthirst and cruelty, like an asura that had crawled out of hell coldly appraising its prey. The intruder is me. Who sent you here? The man's voice was hoarse and gravelly, as if he'd swallowed a handful of sand. Each word dripped with bone, chilling, killing intent. His grip was terrifyingly strong. I immediately struggled to breathe. My throat emitted a faint cracking sound. Let go. I forced the words out with difficulty. My hands instinctively clawed at his fingers, but what I touched was scorching heat. Scorching. That wasn't right. A corpse should be ice cold. Even if he were alive, in this freezing snowstorm, his body temperature shouldn't be this terrifyingly high. I am a physician. This sensation, you've been poisoned. With all my strength, I squeezed the words through clenched teeth. The dosage of GAI-C powder wasn't enough. You're about to suffer Klee deviation. The hand around my neck suddenly froze. A flash of surprise crossed those murderous eyes, quickly replaced by deeper scrutiny. You know medicine. His voice remained icy, though his grip had loosened considerably. I seized the fleeting chance. Greedily sucking in a breath of the stale, decaying air, I spoke rapidly. There are two conflicting streams of energy raging inside your body. One is the medicinal power of the GAI-C powder, meant to make you appear dead. The other is your inner force, which you've been forcibly circulating to suppress the drug. The conflict between them, combined with cold poison invading your body. If you don't receive acupuncture to clear the meridians immediately, within half a watch, you won't need to fake death anymore. Your meridians will rupture, and you'll die for real inside this coffin. The man narrowed his eyes, staring at me intently as if judging whether my words were true or false. Since you already know I'm faking death, you should understand that the dead keep secrets best. His fingertips twitched slightly, as if he would crush my throat in the next instant. If you kill me, you won't survive either. I met his gaze without fear, though my body still trembled from both terror and cold. My voice remained eerily calm. In this desolate wilderness, no one but me can save you. Your subordinates are outside erasing traces. By the time the poison fully activates and you die, they won't even be able to collect your corpse in time. The man fell silent. Outside the coffin, the howling wind and snow seemed to muffle the suffocating tension within. After what felt like an eternity, or perhaps only a moment, he released his hand. Prove it to me, he said coldly. If you can't save me, I'll drag you down to be buried with me. Ignoring the searing pain in my neck, I immediately retrieved several silver needles from the secret pouch at my wrist. Pardon the offense. Without hesitation, and without removing his clothes, relying on our earlier contact and my physician's intuition, I pierced straight through the fabric. The silver needles in my hand stabbed accurately and mercilessly into several major acupoints on his chest. Danjong Juk, Chuhai. As each needle sank in, I recited the acupoint names in a low, steady voice. The man let out a cold grunt. Dense beads of sweat broke out across his forehead. The amount of GAI-C powder in your body was meant to fool the autopsy at the Supreme Court. But to deceive the Regent Prince's eyes and ears, you've suppressed your heart meridians for far too long. My fingers gently twisted the silver needles, feeling the resistance at their tips. I'm now sealing your heart and guiding your inner force back to its source. This process will be extremely painful. If you don't want to die, endure it. The man gazed at me. The killing intent in his eyes gradually faded, replaced by something resembling interest. What is your name? Shen Li. I answered without lifting my head, fully concentrating on controlling the depth and angle of the needles. The concubine, born daughter of the Su family. Shen Li of the Su family. The man chuckled softly, his voice laced with mockery. So anyone, that old fox, actually sired a daughter with guts and insight like you. I am me. He is him. I replied coldly. It's done. These 3 needles will stabilize your breathing for 4 hours. You'll appear dead on the outside, but vitality will remain within. Once we're back at the mansion, you'll need medicinal decoctions to regulate further. I withdrew my hands. Only then did I release a heavy sigh, realizing my back was already drenched in cold sweat. The man, Peiji, the only duke with a different surname from the previous dynasty, the Duke of Zhen, closed his eyes once more and adjusted his breathing. A moment later, his chest no longer rose and fell. His breathing grew so faint it was nearly undetectable, and his body temperature plummeted rapidly until he truly resembled a corpse. You've saved my life. His voice echoed hollowly in the darkness, not from his mouth but directly in my mind. What reward do you desire? Gold and silver, or shall I make that father of yours, who tried to sell you, suffer utter ruin? I curled into the corner of the coffin, hugging my knees tightly as warmth slowly returned to my body. I don't want gold or silver, I said. I want to survive. I want an identity, one that will force both my stepmother and my so-called father to kneel and kowtow the moment they see me. In the darkness, Peiji seemed to laugh lightly. The sound was soft, carrying threads of madness and arrogance. Very well. he said. It just so happens that my duke's mansion is currently lacking a madam capable of holding down the fort. From this moment on, you shall be the outer chamber I, Page, raised in the side courtyard during my life. Now that I am dead, you will carry my remains, and the resentment in my belly, back to the duke's mansion. I was stunned. Outer chamber, why? Wouldn't that be beneath you? No. I lifted my head, my eyes burning as I stared at his shadowy figure in the dark. I'm only afraid that your grace will be the one wronged. After all, when I jumped in earlier, I think I may have stepped on your grace's face. Page remained silent for a moment before suddenly letting out a low, deep cough as though thoroughly amused. Dong, dong, dong. He raised his hand and knocked 3 long beats followed by 1 short on the coffin lid. Instantly, the howling wind and snow outside the temple ceased. A series of orderly footsteps and the sound of weapons being unsheathed followed. Master. A deep, respectful voice sounded outside the coffin. Lift the coffin. Page's voice had returned to its deathly calm and chilling tone. Madam is tired. Return to the mansion to rest. As you command. The shadow guards outside showed not a hint of suspicion, as if an extra person suddenly appearing in the coffin was the most ordinary thing in the world. With a series of swaying motions, the coffin was lifted. I curled up beside Page, listening to the wind and snow raging outside. My heart felt strangely at peace. I knew this was only the beginning. A beginning of deals, mutual exploitation, and dancing on the blade's edge. But I had no other choice. Either freeze to death in the snow and be dragged back to marry that idiot, or carve out a path to survival. The coffin of this man suspended between life and death. I chose the latter. The main gates of the Duke's mansion were even more imposing than I'd imagined. 2 massive stone lions glared furiously amid the snowstorm. White mourning banners hung on the vermilion doors, glaring starkly against the night. The coffin was placed steadily in the center of the mourning hall, in the main building. Along the way, I had memorized the complex web of relationships within the Duke's mansion and the exact role older madam, like myself, needed to play, all under Page's guidance. We're here. Page's voice was extremely low inside the coffin, audible only to me. Push open the lid and step out. Remember, from this moment forward, you are the mistress of this house. Kill anyone who dares obstruct you. I took a deep breath and straightened my simple clothes, which were already stained with blood and wrinkled from body heat. Then I pushed hard against the coffin lid. Creak. The heavy Namu coffin lid produced a horrifying scraping sound. Inside the mourning hall, several elderly servants and maids who had been kneeling and burning paper money were startled by the noise and looked up in shock when they saw a pale white hand emerge from the coffin, followed by a disheveled woman in dirt-covered white robes slowly sitting up. The entire mourning hall fell into deathly silence. The corpse has risen. A young maid screamed, her eyes rolling back as she fainted on the spot. The other servants were so terrified they wet themselves, scrambling backward on all fours. Silence. Gripping the edge of the coffin, I stepped out with stiff but elegant movements. My bare feet touched the cold marble floor with a soft sound. Ignoring the horrified stares, I walked straight to the spirit tablet at the front of the hall. The name, Duke of Jean, Page, was written upon it. I reached out and gently stroked the cold tablet. Tears fell from the corners of my eyes at precisely the right moment. My voice was sorrowful yet carried undeniable authority. Husband, we're home. The words struck the mourning hall like thunder. Are you human or a ghost? A shrewd-looking middle-aged man in a dark gray robe rushed in from the side entrance. He was Yanbo, the chief steward of the Duke's mansion. Behind him followed over a dozen household guards armed with clubs, their eyes filled with vigilance and hostility. What a bold demonic woman, daring to barge into the Duke's mourning hall and play ghost. Seize her. At Yanbo's command, several guards moved to charge forward. I'd like to see who dares. I spun around sharply, my gaze, sharp as a dagger, pierced straight at Yanbo. This was the look I had perfected after 10 years of humiliation in the Su family, and also the oppressive aura Page had taught me in the coffin. I pulled out a warm mutton, fat jade pendant from my bosom and raised it high. See the jade, see the Duke. Steward Yan, you've served his grace for 20 years. Surely you recognize this personal jade pendant. Yanbo's advancing steps halted abruptly. His eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at the jade in my hand. That was Page's personal token that never left his side. The symbol of the highest authority in the Duke of Jun mansion. This is the ink jade Chulin pendant of the Duke. Yanbo's voice trembled. How did it end up in your hands? My husband gave it to me, of course. I laughed coldly, advancing step by step toward Yanbo. I am the madam my husband personally raised in the side courtyard for 3 years. Fearing I would be bullied, he specially entrusted this jade to me and instructed me to send him off on his final journey, and to properly manage this household in his stead. Nonsense. Though intimidated by the jade pendant, Yanbo clearly refused to believe my words. His Grace never mentioned any outer chamber. This jade must have been stolen by you. Men, seize this madwoman full of lies and hand her over to the authorities. Hand me over to the authorities, I sneered. Suddenly, I pulled a silver needle from my hair bun and pressed it against my own throat. I'd like to see who dares touch me. My gaze swept across the hesitant guards before settling on Yanbo's face, which kept shifting between green and white. Steward Yan, why are you so eager to dispose of me? Guilty conscience. The body hasn't even cooled yet, and you're already impatient to seize power, even wanting to eliminate the Duke's only madam. You're slandering me. Yanbo's face turned ashen with rage. Whether I'm slandering you or not, you know best in your heart. I lowered the needle slightly but kept the jade pendant raised high. When my husband was still alive, he told me one more thing. I deliberately paused and lowered my voice so only Yanbo could hear. If you don't make up for those embezzled 50,000 taels, I'm afraid Steward Yan's head won't last until next New Year. Yanbo's pupils contracted to pinpricks. His body swayed violently, nearly collapsing. This was the secret Peiji had revealed to me inside the coffin. For years, Steward Yan had been embezzling funds. Peiji had long since investigated everything but kept him alive, because he still had uses. How do you know? Yanbo's voice hissed through gritted teeth, laced with terror. My husband told me everything. I put away the jade pendant, turned my back to the crowd, and walked to the center of the mourning hall. My voice rang out clear and resolute. From today onward, I am in charge of the mourning hall. Without my explicit order, no one is permitted to approach the coffin even half a step. Violators will be punished for treason. The hall fell into absolute silence. Everyone stared at Yanbo, awaiting his response. Yanbo glared at my back, the muscles on his face twitching. Finally, like a deflated balloon, he slowly bowed his head. As Madam commands. He waved his hand, signaling the guards to withdraw. This old servant will immediately prepare quarters for Madam. No need. I spoke coldly. I will remain right here in the mourning hall to guard my husband. Even if a single fly enters, I will ensure it never leaves. Yanbo gave me one last deep look, filled with wariness, suspicion, and hidden killing intent, before leading his men out without another word. Once the doors of the mourning hall closed, my rigidly tense body finally staggered, but I forced myself to remain standing because I knew a pair of eyes inside that coffin was watching me through the gap. Not bad. Peiji's voice echoed through the empty hall, carrying a faint trace of approval. I never expected the timid concubine, born daughter of the Su family, to be such a natural actress. I walked over to the coffin and looked at the pale man inside through the gap. Your Grace flatters me. Compared to your acting skills, my meager talents are nothing but child's play. That Yanbo won't accept this so easily. Peiji said indifferently. Behind him are the hungry wolves from the collateral branch, and even someone within the palace. Tonight will not be peaceful. I know. I picked up the scissors used for trimming lamp wicks from the altar and toyed with them. The sharp blades glinted with cold light. Since I've boarded your Grace's ship, I never planned on getting off alive. Either we sink together, or we ride the wind and break the waves. I looked at Peiji, the corners of my lips curving into a faint smile. Peiji, you'd best pray that I live a long life, because only while I'm alive can you truly rest in peace. A soft chuckle came from within the coffin. Then it depends on your abilities, Madam Shen. Madam Shen, the candles in the mourning hall flickered like ghostly flames that night. I kept vigil beside the coffin, not daring to close my eyes for even a moment. Although Yanbo had withdrawn, the spies he'd stationed outside the hall remained. I knew they were waiting for me to slip up or to be frightened out of my wits. Unfortunately for them, they had miscalculated badly. 10 years in the Su family, living in a leaking woodshed and eating spoiled leftovers, had shown me that human hearts could be far more terrifying than any ghost. This mourning hall might be gloomy, but it was far cleaner than anything the Su family had ever called a home. As the sky began to lighten, a commotion shattered the silence. That little slut must be hiding inside. I saw her running in this direction with my own eyes. Madame Sue, this is the Duke's mansion. You cannot barge in. Get out of my way. I am the current matriarch of the Sue family. That little slut is my daughter. Disciplining my own daughter is only right and proper. Even when the Duke of Jeanne was alive, he had to give me some face. Let alone now that he's dead. Hearing that shrill, venomous voice, my fingers tightened around the scissors. It was Madame Kuhn. She'd found me, and she'd come fast, arrogant as ever. Bang! The doors to the morning hall were kicked wide open. Freezing wind and snow rushed in, causing the candle flames to dance wildly. Madame Kuhn wore a deep purple cloak, her head adorned with gold and jade. Her fleshy face was twisted with rage. Behind her were the Sue family steward and several sturdy old maids, storming in aggressively. The Duke's mansion servants made a show of blocking them, but clearly didn't try very hard. Yenbo even stood nearby with his arms crossed, enjoying the spectacle. Madame Kuhn spotted me immediately beside the coffin. Very good, you shameless wretch. So you really were hiding here. She pointed straight at my face and cursed, Shenlei. You refused a perfectly good marriage, dared to run away on your wedding day, and even came to this cursed place pretending to be a ghost. I think you've lived too long. Men, drag her back for me. I need to break her legs so she learns what family discipline means. Several burly maids rolled up their sleeves and charged at me ferociously. I remained seated, unmoving. I picked up a cup of long, cold tea and gently blew away the foam, as if I couldn't see the people rushing toward me, just as their dirty hands were about to grab me. Whoosh! 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 3 dark shadows silently dropped from the rafters. Dull thuds and the sound of breaking bones rang out. Ah! The maids screamed in agony as they flew backward, crashing to the ground and clutching their limbs in pain. 3 shadow guards in black stood before me, their faces expressionless like specters. Though their long blades remained sheathed, the killing aura they emitted was enough to freeze the entire hall. Madame Kuhn stumbled back several steps in shock, her face completely drained of color. Who are you people? How dare you strike people from my Sue family? Only then did I slowly set down the teacup and raise my head. My gaze passed over the shadow guards and landed on Madame Kuhn's terrified face. Madame Sue. I spoke calmly, my voice carrying clearly throughout the hall. This is the morning hall of the Duke of Jeanne, not the back courtyard of your Sue family. You brought these thugs here, shouting and causing chaos, disturbing the Duke's spirit. What crime do you think that is? You little bitch, you dare lecture me. Madame Kuhn was so furious her eyes nearly bulged out of their sockets. I am your mother. You were born from my body. I am a concubine born daughter of the Sue family. My birth mother passed away ago. I cut her off coldly. As for you, you're nothing more than a replacement second wife. Are you truly worthy of calling yourself my mother? Madame Kuhn trembled with rage. I am an imperial titled lady. You unfilial wretch, I will report you. I will accuse you of defying your superiors. Go ahead and report me. I stood up, brushing off my sleeves leisurely. However, before you file any complaint, you must first walk out of this door alive. I turned slightly and nodded to the 3 shadow guards. Shadow 1 stands ready. The lead guard cupped his fists. According to the laws of Great Chuan, disturbing the morning hall of a first-rank duke is considered the crime of treason, worthy of death. My voice remained as calm as if I were merely commenting that today's weather was exceptionally fine. However, out of consideration that Madame Sue is an old acquaintance of this madam, the death penalty can be waived. The living punishment, though, is not so easily forgiven. My gaze turned ice cold as I pointed straight at Madame Kuhn. Break both of her legs and throw her out of the mansion. Let the entire capital witness. This is the fate that awaits anyone who dares cause trouble in the Duke of Jeanne's mansion. As you command. The shadow guards obeyed without the slightest hesitation. Their figures blurred as they shot toward Madame Kuhn. You dare. I am the wife of the Sceaux family's vice minister. Madame Kuhn's shriek was abruptly silenced, replaced by a sickening crack of bone. Snap. The crisp sound echoed through the hall. Madame Kuhn's legs instantly turned to jelly. She collapsed like a puddle of mud, the pain so excruciating that she couldn't even scream anymore. Only able to gape soundlessly, wheezing in agony. The Sceaux family's steward and servants were terrified out of their wits. One by one, they dropped to their knees and kowtowed desperately, begging for mercy. Drag them out. I flicked my hand in disgust. 2 shadow guards hauled Madame Kuhn and the burly maids away like dead dogs. Yenbo stood frozen at the entrance, utterly stunned. He had originally assumed I would either use the Su family's influence to escape or be dragged back by them. He never imagined I would strike so viciously, especially against my own stepmother. This woman is far more ruthless than I ever expected. By the time Madame Kuhn's wails completely vanished into the snowy wind, the morning hall once again sank into deathly silence. I returned to my seat beside the coffin and drained the cup of cold tea in one go. The bitter, icy liquid slid down my throat, yet it somehow steadied the frantic pounding of my heart. A single, extremely light knock came from inside the coffin. PG's way of expressing his satisfaction. I set the teacup down and leaned toward the gap in the lid, speaking softly. Your Grace, how did I light that first fire? Was it satisfactory? PG's voice carried a mocking chuckle. Passable. But if you only kill the small fry, the big fish will come soon enough. That birth father of yours, Su Wenyuan, will be far harder to deal with than this foolish woman. So what? I stared out at the swirling snow beyond the doors, my eyes even colder than the blizzard itself. I kill one. Two come. I kill the pair. As long as I still breathe, this morning hall of the Duke of Jun's mansion will be a ghost gate that none of them can ever cross. My fingers gently brushed the side of my neck, still throbbing faintly. That was the mark Peiji had left last night. The brand of the pact I had signed with this devil. From today onward, Shen Li was dead. The one who lived was the ruthless, cold-blooded madam of the Duke's mansion who would disown even her own kin. The news that Madame Kuhn had been beaten until both her legs were broken, and then thrown out spread like wildfire. In less than half a watch, it had swept through the entire Duke's mansion, and even reached the eyes and ears of those in the capital who were secretly watching the Pei family. Yanbo stood in the corner of the hall, his murky old eyes occasionally flicking toward me. The fear in his gaze had deepened, while the contempt from before had noticeably lessened. Madam. Yanbo carried a thick ledger in both hands, his back bent lower than ever before. These are the income and expenditure records for the past 2 months, along with the keys to the treasury. Please review them. I sat upon the main seat in the morning hall, still holding the long, cold teacup, making no move to accept it. Steward Yan, I spoke slowly. My voice echoed clearly through the empty hall. I seem to recall saying that what I want are the complete account books of the Pei family for the past 10 years. Not a single entry missing. You bring me only these 2 volumes. Do you think an outer madam like me cannot read ledgers, or do you simply believe I am unworthy of seeing them? My gaze sharpened like a blade. I slammed the teacup onto the table with a crisp crack. Or perhaps you feel that now that His Grace is dead, this Pei household has already changed its surname to Yan. Yanbo's entire body jerked. With a heavy thud, he dropped to his knees. This old slave would never dare. This old slave only what? A vigorous, aged voice rang out from beyond the doors. Only because I told Steward Yan to put the real ledgers away. What? Does Madame Shen have any objections? I raised my head. An elderly man in a dark, patterned robe strode into the morning hall, leaning on a dragon-headed cane, surrounded by a crowd of maids and sturdy servants. Several disciples from the Pei family's collateral branches followed behind him. Each one fleshy-faced and greedy-eyed, their gazes sweeping across the hall before locking onto the massive golden, threaded Namu coffin. They looked as though they wished they could pry it open right then and there to check for buried gold and jewels. Second uncle of the Pei family, Pei Guang. Inside the coffin, Peiji had once mentioned this old fox. Peiji's parents had died early, and he had climbed to his title through military merit. This second uncle, however, had not only refused to help even a fraction when Peiji was young. He had taken advantage of the situation to seize more than half the Pei clan's assets. Now that Peiji was dead, the old man had come to devour the entire household. Second uncle. I rose without offering any greeting, merely tilting my chin slightly. You are advanced in years. Instead of resting quietly at home to enjoy your old age, what brings you to this morning hall filled with death key? Are you not afraid it will clash with your health? Insolent. A middle-aged man behind Pei Guang jumped forward and jabbed a finger at me. What kind of tone is that when speaking to second uncle? A nameless outer woman of dubious origin. Do you even deserve to point fingers here? If you know what's good for you, hand over the spirit tablet and the keys at once and scram from the Duke's mansion. Dubious origin. I laughed coldly and strolled unhurriedly toward him. The man shrank back a step, hair standing on end under my stare. My name may not appear in the Pei family genealogy, but His Grace's corpse lies right here. Since he acknowledged me, this morning hall falls under my authority. I spun around abruptly. My eyes flashed like lightning toward Pei Guang. Since second uncle has arrived, and Steward Yan says the ledgers are with you, please hand them over now. Pei Guang gave a cold laugh. His dragon-headed cane slammed heavily against the floor. The account books are the Pei family's private secrets. How could they be handed to an outsider like you? Now that Pei Ji is gone, the Duke's mansion has lost its pillar. As the eldest of the clan, it is only right that I temporarily take charge of the family affairs until the court decides who shall inherit the title. Take charge. I stepped closer, each word dripping with mockery. Second uncle wants to manage the household. Or do you want to clean it out completely? You. What nonsense are you spouting? I pulled a thin imperial edict from my sleeve. These are the crimes His Grace recited to me and had me transcribe last night. In the third year of Tiankai, the Pei clan renovated the ancestral hall. 3,000 taels of white silver were withdrawn from public funds, yet only 1,000 were actually used. The remaining 2,000 went straight into second uncle's gambling house in the west of the city. In the fifth year of Tiankai, when military provisions for the northern border grew tense, His Grace sold clan assets to purchase grain. Second uncle bought 3 shops in the south of the city at a low price, then resold them at a huge markup to Hu merchants for 8,000 taels of profit. In the 8th year of Yankai, with every line I read, Pei Guang's face paled another shade. By the final entry, his wrinkled face had turned the color of pig liver, and the hand gripping his cane shook violently. "Nuff. Stop reading," Pei Guang roared. You're spewing venom. Where did you get these lunatic ravings? Lunatic ravings? I slapped the edict down onto the offering table in front of him. Every single debt recorded here has corresponding evidence kept by Steward Yan. If second uncle does not believe me, we can take the ledgers to the Supreme Court right now and ask the capital governor to calculate everything meticulously. The moment the Dali temple was mentioned, Pei Guang completely panicked. Embezzling clan assets might be a mere family scandal, but once it involved military grain and the imperial court, it became a capital crime punishable by confiscation of property and extermination of the entire clan. What exactly do you want? Pei Guang ground his teeth, his voice carrying a hint of forced bravado. Nothing at all. I returned to the main seat and picked up the teacup once more, my eyes cold. Simply spit out all the embezzled silver from the past 10 years. Principal plus interest, totaling 50,000 taels of white silver. Not 1 copper short. Otherwise, this document will appear on the Regent Prince's desk tomorrow morning. You dare threaten me? Threaten you? I blew lightly on the tea foam. This is a transaction, second uncle. Though His Grace has passed, the shadow guards he left behind are still here. If you feel that 50,000 taels is more important than your own head, then by all means try me. The morning hall once again fell into deathly silence. The disciples of the collateral branch exchanged glances, none daring to speak. They had grown used to following second uncle and throwing their weight around. Now that they had truly struck iron, every one of them shrank back like quails. Pei Guang stared at me, chest heaving violently. He had never expected the woman Pei Ji had brought back to be not only vicious and ruthless, but also to know every secret of the Pei family like the back of her hand. Very well indeed. Pei Guang forced the words through clenched teeth. Consider yourself capable. The silver will be delivered within 3 days. No need to wait 3 days. I set the teacup down. If I do not see the silver before sunset, I will go to the Dali temple and beat the grievance drum. Escort the guests out. I issued the order coldly. Shadow 1 stepped forward with several expressionless shadow guards, gesturing politely yet unmistakably for them to leave. Pei Guang trembled with rage. He pointed at me, repeating, "You," for a long moment before finally flinging his sleeve and storming out with his men, faces ashen. Watching their wretched retreating figures, I let out a long, deep breath and realized my back was once again soaked in cold sweat. This battle had been won through intelligence and, even more so, through sheer momentum. Yanbo stood there completely dumbfounded. He had still been waiting to see which way the wind blew. If Pei Guang gained the upper hand, he would have betrayed me instantly. But now, with a heavy thud, he dropped to his knees and slammed his forehead against the cold marble floor. "Madam, spare this old slave's life. This old slave was forced into it. Stand up." I looked at Yanbo, my voice wary yet still commanding. Steward Yan, you are a clever man. The Pei family is currently beset with troubles on all sides. Only if His Grace's spirit tablet remains standing will any of us have a path to survival. From today onward, I hope I will not see a single fly enter this morning hall again. Understood. Understood. This old slave understands. Yanbo kowtowed repeatedly as if granted a great pardon. This old slave will go inventory the treasury immediately. Not even a single rat will slip through. Yanbo withdrew. The doors of the morning hall closed tightly once more. I collapsed back onto the chair, feeling as though every ounce of strength had been drained from my body. Tap tap. 2 crisp knocks sounded from inside the coffin. I forced myself up, walked over, and asked softly, "How was that? Was 50,000 taels enough to buy one of your Grace's lives?" Peiji's voice carried a teasing note. 50,000 taels, you truly dare to make such exorbitant demands? Even if that old man emptied his entire fortune, he might not be able to gather that much. If he can't, tell him to borrow or pawn something. I laughed coldly. When he ate, he never thought it was too much. Now that he has to vomit it back, of course we have to scrape the bone and extract the poison. Shenli. Peiji suddenly spoke my name. You are even more ruthless than I imagined. His voice was low and deep, yet strangely not repulsive. In fact, I rather liked it. I gazed into those deep, dark eyes through the gap in the coffin lid, and my heart skipped a beat. Ruthless, perhaps. In this man-eating world, if you are not greedy, you will only end up being eaten whole, bones and all. Your Grace flatters me. I lowered my eyes. I am merely taking back what belongs to us. After all, this place still has a long way to run. Without silver to grease the wheels, the stage cannot stand firm. Well said. Peiji chuckled softly. Tonight I shall reward you with something good. What? You will know when the time comes. I stared at the pitch black coffin, a faint sense of unease rising in my heart. What on earth is this madman plotting now? Night fell. The candles in the morning hall flickered like ghostly flames in the wind. The snowstorm outside had stopped, but the chill had grown even deeper. This time Yanbo had truly exerted himself, stationing over a dozen trusted guards around the outer perimeter of the hall. Not even a bird could fly in unnoticed. Only after confirming no one was nearby did I approach the coffin, gently push open the lid, and whisper, "Come out and breathe for a while." Peiji did not move. In the candlelight, I saw his face flushed with an unnatural crimson. Fine beads of sweat covered his forehead, and the hand that had once been ice cold was now scorching hot. What's wrong with you? My heart clenched. I reached out to take his pulse. The moment my fingertips touched his wrist, the heat forced me to pull back. Too hot. This wasn't merely a fever. This was the poison acting up. The medicinal effect of the Gai-C powder was beginning to rebound. Peiji's voice was hoarse to the extreme, each word rasping out like it came from a shattered bellows. My inner force can no longer suppress it. But didn't I already perform acupuncture on you? I hurriedly pulled out the pouch of silver needles. Why is the rebound happening so quickly? The Regent Prince added extra ingredients to the bowl of calming soup delivered last night. Peiji panted heavily. That old man still doesn't believe I'm truly dead. You drank it. If you hadn't, how could you have fooled his eyes and ears? Peiji gave a bitter laugh. Enough nonsense. Acupuncture alone won't work anymore. I quickly checked his condition. My brows knitted tightly. The poison had already attacked the heart. Simple acupuncture could no longer hold it back. We must force the poison out. Take off your clothes. Peiji froze for a moment. His burning eyes stared at me intently. What did you say? I said take off your clothes. With one hand I tore open the front of his robe, revealing a chest covered in scars yet still powerfully built. I had to use the raging fire body, piercing technique combined with induced sweating to expel the poison. There is no hot water in the morning hall. We can only rely on your inner force and my acupuncture to force it out. Peiji said nothing more. He allowed me to strip away his inner garment. His body was firm and solid, every muscle brimming with explosive power, yet the crisscrossing scars made my heart ache. Blade wounds, sword cuts, even traces of fire torture. What exactly had this man endured? I steadied my mind, refusing to let stray thoughts distract me. Endure it. This time it will hurt 10 times more than before. I heated the silver needles over the candle flame, then without hesitation drove them into the major acupoints along his spine, fengqi, kuqi. This time I used the burning mountain fire technique. With every needle insertion, I twisted, lifted, and pressed, guiding the key and blood throughout his body. Peiji let out a deep, muffled grunt. The veins on his entire body bulged, and his muscles trembled violently. The heat surged, his body temperature skyrocketed until he felt like a blazing furnace. "Hold me tight," I ordered in a low voice. "What?" Peiji's consciousness seemed slightly dazed. I said, "Hold me tight." I climbed into the coffin and knelt beside him, grabbing his hands and wrapping them around my waist. The space inside the coffin is too small. The heat will dissipate too quickly. I must use my body to lock the warmth in. Otherwise, if the poison is only halfway expelled and then scatters, you will truly be crippled. Peiji seemed to understand. His arms suddenly tightened, pulling me firmly into his embrace, my cheek pressed against his scorching chest. In that instant, I felt as though I too had been set on fire. This was the first time in my life I had been so intimately close to a man. His heartbeat was rapid, pounding against my eardrums like war drums. His breathing was heavy and rough, carrying a thick masculine scent mixed with the faint metallic tang of blood that rushed straight into my neck. I forced down the shame and discomfort, my hands remaining steady as I continued the acupuncture on the acupoints along his back. "Shenli." Peiji murmured my name in his half-conscious state. "Why didn't you run?" His voice was very soft, yet it carried a stubborn edge. "With those 50,000 taels, you could have fled far away." My hands paused for a fraction of a second. Why didn't I run? I had asked myself the same question. If I had taken the 50,000 taels from Yanbo, I truly could have escaped to some unknown place, bought a few acres of land, and lived peacefully for the rest of my days. But could I have been content? I could not accept letting Madame Chun, who had murdered my birth mother, continue living freely. I could not accept watching my weak and useless birth father continue to worm his way through the imperial court. I could not accept my name forever remaining that of a concubine, born daughter who would never see the light of day in the Su family. Because I was not willing, I whispered beside Peiji's ear, "Just as you are not willing to be treated as a mere chess piece by the Regent Prince. I want to stand in a higher place, one so high that no one will ever dare trample my dignity again." Peiji seemed to hear my answer. His arms around my waist tightened further, his feverish head burrowed into the crook of my neck. "Good. Since you refuse to leave, then stay and become my blade." His voice gradually faded. His breathing slowly stabilized. Black poisonous blood seeped out through the needle holes, dripping onto the brocade and releasing a foul, fishy stench. The poison had been expelled. I let out a long sigh of relief, feeling every muscle in my body turn to jelly. Even lifting a finger felt impossible. Inside this narrow, death-filled coffin, I was held tightly in the arms of a corpse. We remained in that position until dawn. When the first rays of morning light pierced through the gap in the roof and fell inside, Peiji awakened. The fever had receded. His eyes had regained their usual clarity, perhaps even sharper than before. He lowered his head to look at me in his arms. I lifted my head to meet his gaze. We were so close that our breaths mingled. My face burned. I tried to struggle upright, only to discover that his arms were still locked around me like iron clamps. "It seems Madame worked very hard last night." The corner of Peiji's mouth curved into a teasing smile, his voice laced with playful mockery. I flushed with embarrassment and anger, shoving him hard. "Since your grace has awakened, please conduct yourself with dignity. I was only saving your life." "I know." Peiji released me, allowing me to crawl out of the coffin and straighten my disheveled clothes. He sat up, looking at the numerous needle marks and black blood covering his body. A complicated emotion flashed through his eyes. "Shenli, you have saved me twice now. Consider it recorded in the ledger." I turned my back to him and answered coldly, "With private interest." Peiji laughed outright. "Rest assured, this duke never defaults on debts." He took something from his bosom and tossed it to me. I caught it by instinct and discovered it was a heavy black, iron command token engraved with a ferocious tiger and bearing a single character. Command. What is this? The tiger tally for commanding the Jun Kingdom army. Peiji spoke indifferently. Though it can only mobilize the shadow guards near the capital, it is enough for you to walk sideways through the city. It was originally meant as a reward. Now it seems it also makes a fine token of affection. A token of affection. The tiger tally felt strangely warm in my hand. Your Grace truly knows how to joke. I slipped the tally into my sleeve. This is merely an advance payment for our cooperation. Think whatever you like. Peiji lay back inside the coffin and closed the lid. Today we will have an honored guest. Ho! The Regent Prince. Xiao Yan. Pei Ji's voice instantly turned freezing cold, thick with killing intent. That old man doesn't just want to see whether I'm truly dead. He also wants to bring people to perform an autopsy. My heart tightened. This autopsy would have to fool not only eyes but also the coroner's knife. This was a true life and death game of chess. Pei Ji was right. The Regent Prince arrived faster than expected. Shortly after the hour of the dragon, the urgent sound of gongs and drums along with thundering horse hooves echoed outside the Duke's mansion. His Highness the Regent Prince has arrived. A eunuch's shrill voice pierced through the heavy mansion gates and straight into the morning hall. I straightened my morning clothes, took a deep breath, and glanced into the bronze mirror. The woman reflected there wore pure white mourning robes. Her pale face was the natural result of staying up all night in fear. No makeup needed. Yet her eyes were filled with unshakable resolve. Don't be afraid. Pei Ji's extremely low voice came from inside the coffin. I am right here. I am not afraid. I whispered back, I only fear my needles are not fast enough. The great doors slowly swung open. A grand procession strode in. At the front walked a man in a purple and gold python robe, a golden crown on his head. He appeared around 40, with a majestic bearing and gloomy eyes. With every step he took, the python robe rippled like a venomous snake ready to strike at any moment. This was Regent Prince Xiao Yan, the man who held sway over both court and wilderness in the Great Qian dynasty. Behind him followed several elderly imperial physicians and a middle-aged man with an expressionless face carrying a wooden case that reeked of blood. Judging by his attire and the bloody aura of the case, he was undoubtedly the chief coroner of the palace. This humble wife kowtows in greeting to His Highness the Regent Prince. I knelt before the morning hall and performed the standard full kowtow. Xiao Yan did not immediately tell me to rise. Instead, he clasped his hands behind his back, letting his gaze sweep across the entire hall before finally settling on the golden, threaded Nanmu coffin. So this is the newly taken Madam of Duke Pei. Xiao Yan's voice revealed neither joy nor anger. Truly a beauty. What a pity that she must remain a widow the moment she enters the family. Thank you for your Highness's concern. I kept my head bowed, voice choked with sorrow. His Grace left in such haste that he did not have time to grant this humble wife an official title. I only hope to guard his spirit tablet and will be perfectly content. Duke Pei was the pillar of the nation. Now that his heroic soul has departed, this prince feels great sorrow. Xiao Yan let out a fake sigh. However, His Grace was in the prime of life and possessed profound martial arts. How could he have suddenly fallen gravely ill? This prince has heard some rather strange rumors. To clarify the truth, this prince has specially brought imperial physicians and a coroner to examine Duke Pei's body, lest he depart this world with unresolved grievances. Here it comes. My heart leaped into my throat. Your Highness. I suddenly raised my head, tears streaming down my face as I blocked the path to the coffin. His Grace has already passed. Let him rest in peace. If we allow others to disturb his remains and open the coffin, how can he ever find peace in the underworld? Madame Pei, His Highness is doing this for Duke Pei's own good. What does a mere woman like you understand? Step aside at once. Silence. The eunuch beside Xiao Yan bellowed. I will not step aside. I clung desperately to the corner of the coffin, sobbing loudly. His Grace was the cleanest man in life. He could not bear the slightest stain. Anyone who dares touch his remains must first step over my corpse. Xiao Yan narrowed his eyes at my shameless display of obstruction. A flicker of impatience flashed deep in his gaze. Madame Shen, this prince is merely following the law. Xiao Yan spoke coldly. Men. Drag Madame out. 2 imperial guards immediately stepped forward, seizing my arms from both sides and forcibly pulling me away. Let me go. Let me go. I struggled with all my might, wailing pitifully. Using the chaos of my thrashing, I shielded my movements with my sleeve and flicked my fingers. 3 tiny silver needles shot out soundlessly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The needles flew straight through the gap in the coffin lid, piercing accurately into 3 critical acupoints on Pei Ji's neck. Feng Fu and Renaying. This was the soul sealing acupuncture technique recorded in the Quanjin Fang. It could instantly stop a person's breathing and even mimic the livor mortis of a corpse. But the method was extremely dangerous. If the needles were not removed within the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the person would truly die. I was gambling. I was betting that Xiao Yan would not actually dissect the body. Open the coffin. At Xiao Yan's command, several guards stepped forward and pushed the heavy lid aside together. Pei Ji lay perfectly still inside. His eyes were tightly closed, his face as white as paper, with faint traces of grayish-blue death key already showing. Xiao Yan personally stepped forward to check Pei Ji's breath, then pressed 2 fingers against his corroded artery. No breathing, no pulse. The corpse was ice, cold and rigid. The suspicion in Xiao Yan's eyes eased slightly, but he was still not fully convinced. He waved at the coroner. The middle-aged man carrying the wooden case stepped up, opened it, and took out a long silver needle and a small, razored sharp knife. My pupils contracted sharply. He wanted to test for poison, and dissect the internal organs. If that blade descended, even if Pei Ji didn't die, he would be gravely wounded. The pain would cause his muscles to twitch instinctively, instantly exposing the fake death. No. I suddenly found a burst of strength and broke free from the guard's hold, throwing myself toward the coffin. I grabbed the coroner's wrist. You cannot do this. His Grace died from poison. It was poison. I screamed like someone driven to the brink of madness. Poison. Xiao Yan's eyes lit up. What kind of poison? I don't know. That night when His Grace returned, he kept vomiting blood. The blood was black. I rambled desperately. He said someone wanted to harm him, and told me 1,000 times not to let anyone touch his body. He was afraid it was goo poison that could spread. Goo poison. Both Xiao Yan and the coroner took a simultaneous step back. Goo poison from the southern border was the kind of thing that made people lose their minds at the mere mention of its name. If it truly was goo poison, the corpse absolutely could not be dissected. Otherwise, if the goo worms escaped, everyone present would be implicated. Xiao Yan stared fixedly at the black bloodstain at the corner of Pei Ji's mouth. The trace I had deliberately left from expelling the poison last night. Then he looked at my terrified soul, scattered appearance and believed it to about 70 or 80%. Since it is poison, then test the blood. Xiao Yan spoke with a trace of wariness. The coroner switched to a different silver needle, carefully pricked Pei Ji's fingertip, and squeezed out a drop of black blood. The moment the blood touched the specially prepared medicinal water, it boiled violently, releasing a plume of foul black smoke. Your Highness, it is indeed a deadly poison. There is no doubt. The coroner put away the needle and reported respectfully. Moreover, the toxicity is ferocious. It looks like the long-lost severing intestines grass mixed with some kind of goo poison. Xiao Yan stared at that drop of black blood and finally relaxed completely. With such terrifying toxicity, not even an immortal could have saved him. Pei Ji was truly dead. Since it is poison, there is no need to disturb the remains further. Xiao Yan pretended to sigh heavily. Close the coffin. Madame Shen, restrain your grief and accept fate. Thank you, Your Highness. Thank you, Your Highness. I collapsed to the ground as if every bone in my body had been pulled out. Now that His Grace has passed, the military authority in this mansion. Xiao Yan's eyes turned greedy. Your Highness. I hurriedly pulled out the tiger Tylee from my bosom and offered it with both hands. When His Grace was still alive, he instructed me, if His Highness the Regent comes, hand this over to him. He said the world belongs to Your Highness, so this military power naturally belongs to Your Highness to command. Xiao Yan received the tiger Tylee and examined it meticulously. After confirming there were no flaws, a satisfied smile finally appeared on his face. Good, very good. Duke Pei truly understood great righteousness. Xiao Yan laughed heartily. Madame Shen is also a sensible person. From now on, this prince will take good care of the Duke's mansion. Thank you for Your Highness's grace. Xiao Yan took the tiger Tylee and led his entourage out in a grand procession. The heavy doors of the morning hall closed once more. I didn't even bother wiping the tears from my face. I practically crawled to the coffin. Hurry. Pull out the needles. My hands shook as I removed the 3 soul-sealing needles. Pei Ji, wake up. I patted his face, my voice filled with genuine panic. The time for one incense stick had already passed. If he didn't wake now. Cough. Cough. Pei Ji finally let out a violent fit of coughing and sucked in a huge breath of air. He opened his eyes. His gaze was still slightly dazed, but he was alive. You woman. His voice was weak, yet carried a hint of laughter. You really are ruthless. I slumped to the floor. Tears poured down uncontrollably, not from heartache, but from the overwhelming relief after the extreme terror I had just endured. Thank the heavens you're not dead. I cried and laughed at the same time. Pei Ji looked at me and slowly reached out, clumsily wiping the tears from my face. Why are you crying? He said. I already told you. I would let you walk unhindered through the capital. This is only the beginning. I stared at his fingertip glistening with my tears, and something soft inside my heart seemed to be gently nudged. We had won this round, but I also knew the real deadly game had only just begun. The Regent Prince had taken the fake tiger tally, but he would soon discover it was counterfeit. When that happened, he would return with even more frenzied vengeance. What we had to do was set this fire burning even brighter before he realized the truth. The Regent Prince Xiaoyan left the Duke's mansion, carrying the fake tiger tally. The entire mansion seemed to enjoy a brief moment of peace after the storm, yet that peace carried a suffocating pressure. I sat on the cold floor of the morning hall, still not fully recovered from the heart-stopping gamble I had just survived. Suddenly, a choked, urgent cry reached my ears. Wah, wah. I don't want to drink, I want to find uncle, I want to find uncle. The voice was very young and weak, filled with extreme frailty and fear. My heart clenched. That was Pei Ji's adopted heir, Pei An. Pei An was only 5 years old. Both his parents had died, and Pei Ji had taken him in as his own. He was the only true young master of the Duke's mansion, besides Pei Ji himself. But ever since Pei Ji died, the child had been forgotten and abandoned in the back courtyard to fend for himself. Stop crying, you're so annoying. A sharp scolding followed immediately. Cry again and I'll throw you down the well. That short-lived uncle of yours is already dead. Now second uncle runs this mansion. If you know what's good for you, obediently drink this pot, washing water. Otherwise you won't even get a sip. I stood up abruptly. That was Granny Lai. The woman Yan Bo had arranged to look after Pei An in the back courtyard. What's going on? Inside the coffin, Pei Ji's voice was slightly hoarse. The 3 soul-sealing needles had clearly damaged his vitality. It's Pei An, I whispered. The child is crying, and it sounds like he's ill. Pei Ji fell silent for a moment. Leave it. His voice was ice cold, without a trace of warmth. This is an extraordinary time. If you get involved, it's very easy to expose everything. Besides, if that child dies, the Regent Prince only feel more at ease. I froze, then turned to stare at the coffin in disbelief. What did you just say? I said leave it. Pei Ji repeated coldly. Those who accomplish great things do not fuss over small details. The life of one child compared to what we must do. Pei Ji. I cut him off with a low shout. That is a human life. He is the grandson you personally brought home. You can use me if you must, but you even want to scheme against a 5-year-old child. Shen Lai. Pei Ji's voice turned completely frigid. Don't forget your own position. You are currently dancing on the edge of a blade. Any superfluous kindness can send you into eternal damnation. Then let it be eternal damnation. I laughed coldly, turned, and walked away. Where are you going? To save someone. I stepped out of the morning hall without looking back. Outside, the sky had already turned pitch black. The remote back courtyard was desolate and cold, with only a few dim lanterns swaying in the wind. I followed the sound of crying and found the dilapidated woodshed. The door was ajar, and a faint candlelight spilled out. Granny Lee was sitting on the only broken bed, gnawing on a greasy chicken drumstick. Pei An was curled up in a pile of moldy dry grass in the corner. A filthy old cotton quilt was wrapped around him. His small face was flushed red with fever, his dry lips trembling as he sobbed softly. Crying, 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 that's all you know. You little jinx. Granny Lee cursed as she threw the gnawed chicken bone at Pei An. The bone struck the child's forehead, instantly leaving a red mark. The boy shrank back, not even daring to dodge. An unnamed rage surged straight to the top of my head. Bang! I kicked the woodshed door open. Granny Lee jumped in fright, and the chicken drumstick fell from her hand. Who is it? When she saw it was me, the panic in her eyes instantly turned to contempt. Oh, I wondered who it was. So it's the outer madam who just lost her man. What's the matter? The morning hall too cold for you, so you came running to the servants' quarters to throw your weight around. I ignored her completely. I walked straight to Pei An and pressed my hand to his forehead. Burning hot. This child has been running a fever for at least a whole day. I'm taking him with me. I picked Pei An up. It was a little difficult, but I held him tightly. Take him, ha! Granny Lee sneered, her triangular eyes scanning me from head to toe. Madam Shen, have you still not figured out the situation? This child now belongs to second uncle. Second uncle said he's a jinx who killed his parents and now his uncle. He must be kept here to ward off bad luck. If you take him and anything happens, can you bear the responsibility? Responsibility. I turned around and looked at her coldly. I am the mistress of the Duke's mansion. Every blade of grass and every tree in this mansion, even the life of a dog like you, falls under my authority. I want to take my child now. Do you have any objections? Your child? Granny Lee laughed as if she had heard the greatest joke. Take a look in the mirror first. Are you even worthy? Besides, second uncle has already spoken. Second uncle's authority is truly great. I suddenly pulled the silver needle from my hair bun. The same one I had used to save Paige the night before. Cold light flashed. The needle pressed precisely against Granny Lee's throat, slicing a thin line that immediately drew blood. Aye! Granny Lee screamed in terror, trembling violently. Murder! Murder! Shut your mouth. I pushed the needle a fraction deeper. Scream again and I'll make sure you never open your mouth for the rest of your life. Granny Lee instantly fell silent, staring at me in horror as if looking at a madwoman. Go back and tell second uncle. I said coldly. I have taken this child. If he dares to stop me, I will plant this needle in his throat just like I did to you. With that, I withdrew the needle, picked up Payan, and turned to leave. Granny Lee collapsed to the floor and didn't dare move for a long time. When I returned to the morning hall, Paige was still lying quietly inside the coffin, but I could feel his eyes on me. I ignored him and placed Payan on the soft couch beside the coffin. That was the bedding Yanbo sent to curry favor with me. I quickly pulled out the pouch of silver needles and the medicine bag I always carried. The child's fever was so high he had already started talking deliriously. Uncle hurts, Anna hurts. My heart felt as though it had been stabbed by needles. I first used warm water to wipe his body and bring the fever down, then performed acupuncture with the scorching technique. That night I didn't remove my outer robe or loosen my belt. I kept vigil beside Payan, feeding him medicine, changing cold compresses, until just before dawn when the high fever finally subsided and his breathing grew steady once more. Exhausted, I sat on the floor, leaning against the coffin wall, and let out a long sigh of relief. You won. Paige's voice suddenly sounded. I turned my head in slight confusion and looked through the gap. What? That fierce look of yours earlier was truly insane, even when facing the Regent Prince. Paige spoke indifferently. All for a child with no blood relation whatsoever. Was it worth it? I looked at Payan sleeping soundly. His small, delicate face was still a little pale, but the pain from before had disappeared. It was worth it, I whispered. Paige, the reason you have survived in this man-eating world is because you are ruthless enough. But the reason I have survived is because I still know what a moral bottom line is. If I hadn't saved the child, how would I be any different from those who wanted to sell me for betrothal money? How would I be any different from your second uncle who wants to devour the entire family? Paige remained silent for a very long time. So long I thought he would not speak again. Shenlu. His voice became very soft, carrying a complicated emotion I had never heard before. If only you had met me a little earlier. I was stunned. What do you mean? Nothing. Paige seemed to turn over. Go to sleep. Tomorrow there is another fierce battle to fight. I leaned against the coffin, listening to the steady breathing coming from inside, and a warm current suddenly rose in my heart. This man might have a hard mouth and a cold heart, but in the end he still possessed a trace of humanity. At the very least, he had not stopped me from bringing Payan back. In the middle of the night when I was feeding Anna medicine, he had even secretly used his inner force to warm the bowl for me. That night, 2 more breaths, one big, one small, one strong, one weak, filled the morning hall, making this gloomy and terrifying place suddenly feel like it truly had a trace of family warmth. Payan recovered very quickly. After all, he was the young master of the Duke's mansion with a good foundation, and with my meticulous care, within 3 days he was already running and jumping around. The child was very sensible. He knew both I and Uncle were here. Although Uncle lay inside that black box and never spoke, he never threw tantrums. He only sat obediently on the soft couch reading books or helping me hand over handkerchiefs. On Yanbo's side, although he couldn't gather the full 50,000 taels, he had delivered 30,000 in cash and several land deeds. Second Uncle had truly bled this time. He was probably at home right now stabbing a voodoo doll of me. But I knew all of this was only temporary. The real danger still lurked in the shadows. Although the Regent Prince had taken the fake tiger tally, a suspicious man like him would sooner or later notice something wrong. Moreover, although Second Uncle had suffered a loss, the Pang faction behind him would never accept it willingly. Even inside the Duke's mansion itself, things were not clean. This food has a problem. At noon today, Yanbo personally brought a bowl of ginseng soup, claiming it was to nourish Peiyan's body. The moment I lifted the bowl and sniffed it, Pei Ji's cold voice rang out from inside the coffin. My hand trembled and I nearly dropped the bowl. "What's wrong?" I asked softly. "There is severing intestines grass added inside." Pei Ji's voice carried killing intent. "The dosage is very light. Ordinary people wouldn't smell it. But this scent is far too familiar to me." Severing intestines grass was exactly the poison the coroner had identified in front of the Regent Prince that day. My heart tightened. This was a probe. If Pei Ji was truly dead, pouring out this bowl of soup would mean nothing. But if Pei Ji was still alive, or if there was some secret hidden in the morning hall, this bowl was the perfect stepping stone. And they had even given it to Peiyan. They wouldn't even spare a child. Who did it? I gritted my teeth. Yanbo is just the errand boy. Pei Ji gave a cold snort. The one who actually poisoned it is Chef Lu, the head of the kitchen. He is a hidden pawn planted by the Regent Prince inside the mansion. How do you know? Because in this mansion, only he has access to this kind of palace secret medicine. I looked at the fragrant, tempting bowl of ginseng soup in my hand. A ruthless glint flashed through my eyes. "Since you want to play dirty tricks, don't blame me for being vicious." "Someone come," I called out. Yanbo, who had been waiting outside the door, immediately entered upon hearing my voice. "Madam, what are your orders? This soup isn't bad." I held the bowl and smiled faintly at Yanbo. "It's just that Anner has only just recovered from his fever and cannot handle such heavy supplementation. I noticed the black dog guarding the morning hall door seems a bit listless lately. Why don't we reward it with this bowl?" Yanbo's expression changed drastically. "Madam, this is for the young master." "What? Does Steward Yan feel sorry for a dog?" My eyes turned icy. "Or is there something in this bowl of soup that cannot be seen by others?" Thud. Yanbu dropped to his knees. "This old slave would never dare. This old slave will feed it to the dog right away." Trembling, he took the bowl and carried it to the entrance of the morning hall. The large black dog that usually guarded the door smelled the meat and immediately pounced over. In a few gulps, it licked the ginseng soup clean. Yanbo stood to the side, staring fixedly at the dog. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead. The time for one incense stick passed. The black dog was still wagging its tail happily. Yanbo breathed a sigh of relief and was about to turn and report to me when, woof, 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 the black dog let out a miserable howl and collapsed heavily to the ground. Its limbs twitched violently, foam mixed with black blood pouring from its mouth. In the blink of an eye, it stopped breathing. Yanbo was so frightened he sat down hard on the floor, his face deathly pale. "This matter." I walked slowly to the entrance, looked down at the dead dog with arrogance, then turned my gaze to the terrified Yanbo. "Steward Yan, is this the nourishing soup you brought for the young master?" If I hadn't paid extra attention, the one lying here right now would be Anner. "Madam, spare my life. This really has nothing to do with this old slave. Chef Lu in the kitchen cooked it. This old slave only carried the bowl. This old slave truly knew nothing." Yanbo kowtowed desperately until blood flowed from his forehead. "Chef Lu." I laughed coldly. "What a good Chef Lu. Shadow 1. This subordinate is here. Go to the kitchen and bring Chef Lu to me. Also, bring me every single bowl of soup and rice he has prepared in the past few days." "As you command." In less than half a watch, Shadow 1 dragged a fat man tied up like a dumpling into the morning hall. It was Chef Lu. The man's face was already bruised and swollen. Clearly the shadow guards had given him a warm welcome. "Madam, spare my life." This humble one was forced. The moment Chef Lu saw the dead dog, he knew the matter had been exposed and immediately began crying and begging. I walked up to him and pulled the silver needle from my hair bun. The needle had appeared quite frequently lately, but I liked it. "Tell me, who ordered you?" Chef Lu arted evasively toward the door. "This humble one cannot say. If I say it, I will die. You don't say it now and you die immediately." I pressed the needle right against his eye. "And I will make sure your death is extremely miserable. For example, mincing you up and feeding you to the dogs, just like that dog earlier." Chef Lu was so terrified his pants became wet. It was the one inside the palace. "The steward of the Regent Prince's mansion found this humble one," he said. He said that as long as this humble one poisoned the young master's soup, we could test whether Duke Pei was truly dead. He also gave this humble one 500 taels of silver. I hid them all under the bed in a thick box. As expected, it was the Regent Prince. I took a deep breath and suppressed the rage in my heart. Very well. I withdrew the needle. Since you enjoy poisoning people so much, then you can taste it for yourself, Steward Yan. This old slave is here. Yanbo was now completely cow and obeyed without question. Go to the kitchen, bring the remaining half-pot of ginseng soup, and pour every last drop down Chef Lu's throat. Not a single drop is to be wasted. As you command. Yanbo didn't say another word. He led 2 household guards to the kitchen. Very quickly, the half-pot of ginseng soup was brought over. Amid Chef Lu's desperate screams, the half-pot of severing instance grass, laced ginseng soup was forcibly poured down his throat. A moment later, another corpse with blood flowing from all 7 orifices appeared in the morning hall. I looked at the corpse and felt not the slightest ripple in my heart. In this man-eating world, being merciful to your enemies is being cruel to yourself. Clean it up. I instructed Shadow One to throw the body into the mass grave. To the outside world, say Chef Lu suddenly fell ill with a violent disease and died. Also, spread the rumor that this black dog took the disaster in place of its master. This is an ill omen, and a warning. As you command. The morning hall once again returned to calm. I walked over to the coffin and asked softly, Your Grace, were you satisfied with that little show of killing the chicken to warn the monkey? Peiji's voice carried a trace of amusement. Shen Li, your current appearance is becoming more and more like the true mistress of the Duke's mansion. Is that so? I looked at the bloodstains on my hand. The blood that had accidentally gotten on me from Chef Lu earlier. Unfortunately, this is only the beginning. Since the Regent Prince has started to suspect, he will definitely not send just a small fry like this to throw away his life. The next wave of attacks can only be more ferocious. What is there to fear? Peiji spoke indifferently. Soldiers come. We block with generals. Water comes. We block with earth. As long as you and I join hands, sooner or later this sky over the capital will have to change. I looked at the man inside the coffin. Even while lying down, his aura was still overwhelming. A surge of heroic spirit suddenly rose in my chest. That's right, what is there to fear? I had already died once on the night I fled my wedding. The Shen Li of today was an avenging demon who had crawled up from hell. Whoever dared block my path, I would send straight down to hell. The news that Chef Lu had suddenly died of a violent illness spread like a stone thrown into a calm lake, creating layer after layer of ripples. The Regent Prince remained temporarily quiet. He was probably reassessing my weight, or preparing an even bigger killing move. But this brief peace was soon shattered by another uninvited guest. My birth father, So Wenyuan, Vice Minister of the Imperial Court. He arrived with even greater pomp than second uncle. A 4-man sedan, with people clearing the way ahead and guards following behind. He had even invited the capital governor to accompany him. Clearly, he had come fully prepared this time. Unfilial daughter, come out here and greet your father at once. Su Wenyuan stood at the entrance of the morning hall and pointed inside, cursing loudly. I was holding Payan on the soft couch, teaching the child how to recognize characters. When I heard that voice, my brows furrowed slightly. I put the book down. Aner, are you scared? I asked. Payan shook his head. His small hand gripped my sleeve tightly. With Madame Shen here, Aner isn't afraid of anything. Good boy. I patted the child's head, stood up, and straightened my clothes. Shadow One, guard the young master well. If anyone dares approach the child even half a step, kill without mercy. I took a deep breath and strode out of the morning hall. The moment Su Wenyuan saw me, the shrewd eyes that always gleamed with cunning instantly spat fire. Very good. This unfilial daughter of yours actually dares to stand here so brazenly. So Wenyuan jabbed a finger straight at my nose. You, a mere concubine, born daughter who fled her own wedding, not only barged into the Duke's mansion uninvited but also dared to impersonate the Duke's madam. You even severely injured your legitimate mother. This is outright treason, lawless and heaven-defying. Capital Governor. So Wenyuan turned to the plump, middle-aged official in court robes beside him and cupped his hands. This woman is none other than my unfilial, wedding-fleeing daughter, Shen Li. Not only did she defy her superiors, she even plotted to seize the Duke's mansion assets. I implore your excellency to arrest her at once and subject her to severe interrogation as a warning to the world. The capital governor stroked his beard, looking somewhat troubled as he glanced at me. Lord Su, this Madame Shen holds His Grace's personal token in her hands. The incident when she produced the ink jade pendant in the morning hall that day has already spread throughout the entire capital. The capital governor wanted to curry favor with Su Wenyuan, yet he did not dare lightly offend the lingering power of Peiji. What token? That was stolen. Su Wenyuan roared. She's nothing but a concubine, born daughter raised in the inner chambers. What does she know of the world? She must have taken advantage of the chaos to steal the Duke's belongings. Your Excellency must not let her deceive you. Deceive you? I laughed coldly and slowly descended the steps. Lord Su, your talent for turning black into white truly hasn't diminished at all. Insolent. I am your father. How dare you speak to me like this? Su Wenyuan trembled with rage, his beard quivering. Father. I walked right up to him, my gaze as cold as a blade. When my stepmother forced bone, softening powder down my throat, and tried to sell me to an idiot for betrothal money, where were you? When I fled barefoot through the snow, nearly freezing to death, where were you? When I had no choice but to hide inside a dead man's coffin to survive, where were you? Now that you see the Duke is dead and the mansion is left with only a widow and orphan, easy prey. You suddenly jump out to play father. So Wenyuan, are you even worthy? Every word stabbed straight into his heart like a dagger. Each sentence landed like a slap across Su Wenyuan's face. The surrounding crowd and servants erupted into hushed discussion. Su Wenyuan's aged face flushed the color of pig liver. You unfilial wretch, I'll beat you to death. In his fury, Su Wenyuan raised his hand to strike me. Slap. A crisp sound rang out, but the slap did not land on my face. It landed squarely on Su Wenyuan's. The one who struck was me. The entire scene fell deathly silent. Even the capital governor gaped, eyes nearly bulging from their sockets. A daughter slapping her father in public. This was the first time such a thing had happened in the Great Chuan dynasty. You dare hit me? So Wenyuan clutched his face, staring at me in disbelief. I hit you because you deserved it. I rubbed my numb palm and said coldly, this slap is for my late mother. Back then she brought her entire dowry and married beneath her status to help you climb the ranks. In the end, you favored your concubine and abandoned your wife, letting Madame Chun torment her to death. So Wenyuan, has your conscience been eaten by dogs? Rebellion. This is outright rebellion. So Wenyuan shook with fury. Capital governor, what are you waiting for? Arrest this madwoman at once. The capital governor snapped back to his senses and was about to issue the order. Not so fast. I pulled a golden imperial scroll from my sleeve. The marriage contract Peiji had written overnight. Whoever dares arrest me, look at this. I raised the marriage contract high and shouted. This is the marriage contract His Grace left behind while he was alive. It bears the official seal of the Duke's mansion and His Grace's personal seal. Written in black and white, it clearly states that I, Shen Li, am the legitimate principal wife whom Peiji formally wed. So Wenyuan was stunned. This is impossible. You clearly haven't even left the family yet. Who says you cannot marry before leaving the family? I opened the marriage contract for everyone to see. 3 years ago, when His Grace was traveling incognito and passed by the Su mansion, he fell in love at first sight and secretly betrothed himself to me. It was just that at the time His Grace carried heavy responsibilities and could not make it public, so he drew up this marriage contract as proof. Lord Su, if you do not believe it, feel free to verify the authenticity of the seal. The seal was naturally real. Peiji was lying right inside the coffin, his personal seal. He could stamp as many as he wished. The capital governor took the marriage contract and examined it meticulously. His expression instantly became extremely colorful. The seal is indeed His Grace's personal seal. There is no doubt. So Wenyuan was dumbfounded. He had planned to use the crime of a concubine, born daughter fleeing her wedding to drag me back and deal with me slowly. But now with this marriage contract I am the legitimate Duchess of Jun, the super-grade titled lady. Even a fourth-rank vice minister like him would have to kowtow to me. This is impossible. This is definitely forged. Su Wenyuan was still struggling desperately. 3 years ago, how old were you? How could His Grace possibly have taken a fancy to you? This must be fake. I put away the marriage contract, contempt in my eyes. Lord Su, do you think His Grace is as blind as you are? The daughter you looked down on is a treasure in someone else's eyes. Escort the guests out. I no longer wanted to waste words with him and issued the order directly. The shadow guards stepped forward once more. This time, however, their blades were already half drawn. Su Wenyuan looked at the gleaming blades, then at the capital governor whose face showed he was helpless. Finally he realized the greater situation was lost. Very well, Shenli. Just you wait. Su Wenyuan spat a vicious threat, clutching his swollen cheek as he crawled into his sedan and fled in disgrace. Watching the sedan disappear into the distance, I felt no relief, because I knew a petty man like Su Wenyuan was best at stabbing people in the back. Since he had dared to come, there was definitely someone behind him pulling the strings, and that person could only be the Regent Prince. The play was becoming more and more exciting. The night was thick as ink. The wind and snow outside the morning hall seemed to have stopped, yet the oppressive silence only grew more terrifying. They're here. Inside the coffin, Peiji's voice was extremely soft, yet it rang like a taut bowstring. I was adding oil to the eternal lamp. My hand paused for a fraction of a second before I calmly continued. Only my other hand secretly slipped into my sleeve and crushed a wax pill. How many? I asked softly. 1. The footsteps were light yet completely silent. The Black Crow death warriors raised by the Regent Prince's mansion. Peiji laughed coldly. It seems Xiaoyan couldn't wait any longer. Tonight he wants to destroy the corpse and erase all traces. Then it's perfect. I've also prepared a big gift for them. I turned and walked to the incense burner in the center of the hall, sprinkling the crushed powder inside. The powder met the heat and instantly dissolved, releasing a faint, sweet floral smoke. This was the soul-returning incense recorded in the incomplete manual of 1,000 gold prescriptions. Ordinary people would smell nothing unusual, but when combined with the bone, darkening powder I had scattered on the carpet by the door earlier, it became a deadly poison. Creak. The heavy doors of the morning hall were pushed open without a sound. Several black shadows shot in like ghosts. They said nothing. The weapons in their hands gleamed with sinister green light under the candle flames as they charged straight toward the golden, threaded Nanmu coffin. I stood before the coffin in my pure white mourning robes, without a single weapon in my hand. I simply watched them quietly. Kill. The lead death warrior gave a low shout. The moment they were 3 steps away from me, everything changed. The ferocious death warriors suddenly froze, their eyes began to glaze over. In their vision, the morning hall instantly transformed into an Asura hell. Countless vengeful ghosts crawled up from the ground, opening blood-filled mouths to take their lives. Demons, there are demons, don't come near. Some began wildly swinging their blades at empty air. Others clutched their throats in agony and collapsed, emitting strange gurgling sounds. Hold your breath, there's poison in the incense. The lead death warrior reacted the fastest, but he had inhaled the most poison. His legs had already gone soft. Too late. I spoke coldly. A sharp scalpel slid from my sleeve. This is what I normally use to dissect rabbits. Today it's quite handy for killing people too. My figure flashed like lightning through the hallucinating death warriors. I didn't need complicated moves, just a simple slice across their corroded arteries. Whoosh. Fresh blood sprayed, dyeing my pure white mourning robes red. You're not Shenli. The lead death warrior clutched his spurting neck, staring at me in horror. You are a ghost. I am Shenli. I wiped a drop of hot blood from my cheek. My eyes were even colder than this winter night. It's just that this Shenli crawled up from hell. When the last death warrior fell, the morning hall once again returned to deathly silence. Only fresh blood covered the floor and the sweet floral scent slowly dissipated. Tap. Tap. Applause came from inside the coffin. Clean and decisive. That blade work is even more precise than the palace executioners. Peiji's voice carried admiration and a faint, hard-to-detect excitement. You flatter me. I tossed the scalpel into the brazier to destroy the evidence. Your Grace, the bodies on the floor will have to trouble your shadow guards to clean up. I'm tired and don't feel like mopping the floor. Don't worry. By tomorrow morning, this place will be spotless, as if nothing ever happened. I leaned against the coffin and slumped to the floor, listening to my heartbeat gradually steady. Peiji. Xiaoyan sending death warriors proves he has finally lost all patience. Tomorrow will likely be the decisive battle. Are you afraid? I looked at my blood-covered hands. The corners of my mouth curved into a mad smile instead. But I'm even more afraid of poverty. Afraid of being trampled underfoot. Afraid that even the right to die is in someone else's hands. Then sleep. Peiji spoke softly. Rest well. Tomorrow we will give this capital a big gift together. The The sky had just begun to lighten when the deep, somber sound of horns shattered the peaceful morning of the Duke's mansion. Madame Shen, receive the imperial decree. A eunuch's shrill voice rang out outside the mansion gates, followed by the orderly clash of armor. I pushed open the morning hall doors. The entire Duke's mansion was surrounded by thousands of imperial guards, tight as an iron barrel. The black army pressed down like dark clouds. Spear tips gleamed with cold light in the morning mist. Regent Prince Xiaoyan sat high on a tall horse in full military attire, whip in hand, arrogantly looking down at me. Behind him were the bound Yanbu and the household guards of the Duke's mansion. Your Highness, what is the meaning of this? I stood on the high steps, the tightly closed morning hall doors behind me. My voice trembled slightly, but my spine remained straight. What is the meaning? Xiaoyan laughed coldly and threw the fake tiger tally to the ground. Madame Shen, you have tremendous gall, daring to forge a tiger tally to deceive this prince. Not only that, this prince has received secret reports that the Duke's mansion is secretly harboring remnants of the previous dynasty with intentions of rebellion. Men, search the premises. If you want to frame someone, there are plenty of excuses. I shouted in fury. His Grace's bones have not even cooled and the mourning period is not yet over. Yet your Highness already wants to lead troops to raise the mourning hall. Are you not afraid the world will mock you? Are you not afraid of disheartening the millions of soldiers on the border? The world. Xiaoyan threw his head back and laughed. This prince is the world. As for the soldiers on the border, now that Peiji is dead, that military power naturally belongs to the court. Madame Shen, this prince shows you mercy. As a woman, I will give you one last chance. Hand over the real tiger tally and open the mourning hall for this prince to inspect the body. Perhaps I can still leave you with an intact corpse. Otherwise, don't blame this prince for being ruthless. Killing intent flashed in Xiaoyan's eyes. The archers were ready. Rumble. Hundreds of archers drew their bows in unison. The cold arrow tips aimed straight at me, and straight at the mourning hall behind me. Your Highness. I let out a miserable cry, tears pouring down. Do you truly want to exterminate us to the last? Peiji was your sworn brother. Sworn brother. Xiaoyan sneered. Anyone who stands in this prince's way, even blood brothers, must die. He raised his whip. Shoot! Not so fast. At this hair trigger moment, I suddenly pulled out a dagger and pressed it against my own heart. Your Highness, if you want the tiger tally, first order these archers to stand down. Otherwise, I will commit suicide right here, and the location of the tiger tally will remain a mystery forever. Xiaoyan narrowed his eyes at my desperate appearance, a trace of hesitation in his heart. The fake tiger tally had been made extremely convincingly. If he hadn't had craftsmen examine it meticulously, he would never have noticed. This proves the real tiger tally is definitely still in my hands. Fine. Xiaoyan raised his hand to halt the archers. He urged his horse forward step by step up the stairs, closing in on me. Shenli, you are a smart woman. Hand over the real tiger tally and this prince guarantees you wealth and glory. I can even make you my side consort. He reached out to touch my face, his eyes filled with greed and lust. I suppressed my disgust and took a step back, retreating into the threshold of the mourning hall. Your Highness must keep your word. A prince does not joke. I took a deep breath and revealed a tragic smile. The tiger tally is inside the coffin with His Grace. If your Highness has the courage, go in and take it yourself. Xiaoyan was stunned for a moment, then laughed wildly. A dead man is already dead. What is there this prince dares not do? He strode across the threshold and entered the mourning hall. I followed behind him. Looking at his back, my eyes instantly turned icy. Close the doors. At my command, Shadow One and the others hidden behind the doors slammed them shut. The massive bolt dropped with a heavy thud. The light inside the mourning hall instantly dimmed. Xiaoyan whipped his head around, sensing something wrong. Madame Shen, what are you trying to do? I said nothing. I simply walked to the coffin and gently patted the lid. Husband, someone is bullying your wife. The word husband made even my own skin crawl, but in Xiaoyan's ears, it was a death summons from hell. Husband. Xiaoyan's expression changed drastically. He stared at the coffin in shock. Peiji isn't dead. If this duke were dead, who would come watch this good show? A low, cold laugh came from inside the coffin. Then, the lid that had been nailed shut suddenly exploded with a boom. Wood fragments flew everywhere in a cloud of dust. A black shadow leaped out of the coffin and landed steadily on the ground. Peiji wore a black python robe, his long hair flowing freely. His complexion was still slightly pale, but the surging killing intent in his eyes was sharper than any blade or sword in the hall. He held a long sword. Its tip pointed at the ground, still dripping with the dried rat blood from last night. The blood he had used to nourish the blade inside the coffin to intimidate Xiaoyan. Feeling well, Peiji slowly raised his head, the corners of his mouth curved into a bloodthirsty arc. Xiaoyan stumbled back 2 steps and crashed into the altar, his face as white as paper. You are human or ghost? Human or ghost? Peiji tilted his head and looked at me standing beside him. Madam, what do you think? I stepped forward, took a handkerchief, and gently wiped the wood dust from his cheek. My movements were tender, like a real wife. Of course his grace is human, the man who stands tall between heaven and earth in the great Chuan dynasty. I said softly. It's just that some people with dark hearts see everyone as a ghost. Excellent. A pair of adulterous traitors. Xiaoyan had after all experienced great storms and quickly regained his composure. Peiji, so what if you're not dead? There are 3,000 imperial guards outside belonging to this prince. Inside your mansion, you only have 100 shadow guards. Today, even if we chop you into minced meat, no one can save you. Is that so? Peiji gave a faint laugh and pulled a ledger from his bosom, tossing it at Xiaoyan's feet. This records all the evidence of your 10 years of colluding with enemy nations, selling military secrets, forming factions for personal gain. Every entry bears your signature and seal. Xiaoyan's pupils contracted violently. He bent down to pick up the ledger, flipped through 2 pages, and his hands began to tremble. How did you get these? This is all thanks to my good madame here. Peiji wrapped an arm around my waist. These past few days, while she was outside showing off her power, and forcing those so-called good relatives of mine into desperate corners, they sold out every last secret of yours to protect themselves. I smiled and delivered another blow. Second uncle, for those 50,000 taels, handed over the ledger of the salt smuggling operation you ordered him to transport years ago. A's for Vice Minister Su, that good father of mine, to avoid exile, also handed over the draft of the forged imperial edict you had him deliver. You, all of you. Xiaoyan trembled with rage and violently drew the sword at his waist. This prince will slaughter you all. But Peiji casually swung his long sword and blocked Xiaoyan's attack without even moving his feet an inch. Xiaoyan, you have lost, Peiji said indifferently. Listen to the sounds outside. Xiaoyan froze and listened carefully. The originally orderly battle cries had somehow turned into miserable screams and chaotic footsteps. What is happening? 30,000 elite Jun Kingdom troops slipped into the capital last night under cover of the heavy snow. Peiji's eyes were icy. His wrist flicked, and his long sword instantly knocked Xiaoyan's weapon away, pressing the tip against the man's throat. At this moment, your Regent Prince's mansion has already been searched. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Xiaoyan collapsed to the ground, hair disheveled, looking like a madman. The Jun Kingdom army is far away on the northern border. Without the Tiger Tally, how could they be mobilized? Moreover, the 9 city gates commanders are all my people. The 9 city gate commanders. Peiji laughed mockingly. Last night they were already sent on their way by a cup of poisoned wine from my madam. As for the Tiger Tally, he pulled the real black, iron Tiger Tally from his sleeve and dangled it in front of Xiaoyan. This can command troops, but what makes the soldiers willing to die is this head of mine, Peiji, and these scars. Boom. At that moment, the morning hall doors were smashed open by external force. But this time, it wasn't the Imperial Guards rushing in. It was Jun Kingdom army soldiers in black armor, radiating killing aura. This general has arrived late to rescue your grace. I deserve death. A bearded general knelt on one knee, his voice resounding like thunder. Rise. Peiji sheathed his sword, not even sparing Xiaoyan on the ground at first glance. Take him to the heavenly prison. Deliver these ledgers and evidence to His Majesty immediately. As you command. Only after Xiaoyan was dragged away like a dead dog did my legs finally go soft and I nearly collapsed. Peiji quickly caught me with one hand. What's wrong? You faced thousands of troops and 10,000 horses without fear, yet now your legs are weak. He teased me. That was adrenaline. Now that the excitement is over, of course I'm relieved. Peiji chuckled softly. Suddenly, he bent down and scooped me up in his arms. Hey, what are you doing? So many people are watching. I cried out in alarm, my face flushing all the way to my ears. Let them watch. Peiji strode out of the morning hall, welcoming the first rays of morning sun at the entrance. You are my principal wife, the mistress of this duke's mansion. Who dares to gossip? I buried myself in his arms, looking at the soldiers and servants kneeling all around. My heart was filled with complicated emotions. Peiji, does this mean our rebellion succeeded? It's not rebellion. Peiji looked toward the imperial palace, his deep eyes profound. This is called cleansing the court. From today onward, the sky over Great Qian will truly be bright. The speed of Xiaoyan's downfall was faster than I had imagined. With ironclad evidence, His Majesty flew into a thunderous rage. In less than 3 days, the Regent Prince's faction was uprooted completely. Blood flowed for 3 days and 3 nights on the execution ground. As for the cleanup of the Su family and second uncle, Peiji handed full authority to me. In the main hall of the Duke's mansion, Su Wenyuan and Madame Qun knelt on the ground, trembling. The once arrogant father now had white hair, dressed in prisoner's clothes and looking 10 years older. Madame Qin, with her 2 broken legs untreated, lay sprawled on the ground, emitting a foul stench. Liar, liar, I am your father. So Wenyuan wailed miserably. It was all that venomous woman Madame Qun who instigated me to marry you off to the idiot. I was momentarily confused. For the sake of blood ties, please spare your father this once. Madame Qun forcefully raised her head and glared at Su Wenyuan with venomous hatred. Oh Su Wenyuan, you spineless coward. Who was the one who said he wanted to sell this concubine, born daughter for a good price to cover the deficit? Now you're pushing all the blame onto me. Shut up, you woman. So Wenyuan slapped her across the face. Watching the two of them tearing at each other, I felt nothing but disgust. Nuff. I sat on the main seat and spoke indifferently. They immediately fell silent, staring at me with desperate hope. Su Wenyuan. Back then my mother sold her entire dowry to help you pass the imperial examinations. After you achieved success and fame, you despised her for being a merchant's daughter and allowed Madame Qun to torment her to death. This is debt number 1. For the past 10 years, I lived worse than a servant in the Su mansion and was sold by you for glory. This is debt number 2. A few days ago in the morning hall, you even tried to push me to my death. This is debt number 3. I stood up and walked in front of them. I won't kill you. Killing you would dirty my hands. Someone come. Yanbo immediately stepped forward. Madam, this servant is here. Strip Su Wenyuan of his official post and exile him 3,000 miles to the southern border, never to return to the capital. As for Madame Qun, since she loves money so much, send her to the official brothel and distribute her to the border military camps. No. Liar, I am your father. So Wenyuan wailed and tried to crawl forward to hug my legs. Shadow One kicked him away and dragged him out. I turned without looking at them again. Lord Su, have a safe journey on the long road. As for second uncle, Peiji was even more ruthless. He directly charged him with embezzling military assets, confiscated the entire family fortune, and exiled the whole clan to the army. After handling everything, I stood in the quiet courtyard, looking at the new sprouts on the withered tree, and let out a long, deep sigh. It turned out that after revenge, there was no wild joy as I had imagined, only a calm stillness after the dust had settled. What are you thinking about? A cloak carrying body heat was draped over my shoulders. Peiji hugged me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. I'm thinking, am I too ruthless? I said softly. Ruthless. Peiji chuckled lightly. If you weren't ruthless enough, the ones kneeling on the ground begging for mercy right now would be us. In this world, kindness must have thorns. Your ruthlessness is just right. I turned around and looked at the man standing shoulder to shoulder with me. Peiji, our deal is over. Peiji raised an eyebrow. The Su family is finished. I've also retrieved my mother's dowry and medical manual. According to our agreement, I helped you hold down the fort. Now you should give me freedom and an identity. Can I leave now? Peiji's expression instantly darkened. The arms that had been holding me suddenly tightened. Leave? Where do you want to go? The world is vast. I want to open a medical clinic to treat and save people. No? Why not? Does the great Duke of Jun plan to renege on the debt? Peiji stared into my eyes and suddenly leaned down to kiss me. The kiss was domineering and scorching, carrying an unrefusable possessiveness, as if he wanted to swallow me whole. Only when I was nearly suffocating did Peiji release me. Because you also cured me. He panted beside my ear. This dowry is too expensive. I can't afford it. I can only repay with my body and marry you for life. My face burned red like a boiled shrimp. Shameless. I am shameless. Page E pulled a golden imperial scroll from his bosom. See what this is? I took it in confusion, opened it, and was instantly stunned. It was a real imperial decree personally written by His Majesty. Shenli is hereby conferred the title of first rank protectorate madam, betrothed to Duke of Zhen Page E. She shall enjoy the stipend of a principal first rank official and be treated as 3 ranks higher when meeting court officials. This is the real betrothal gift. Page E took my hand. The previous marriage contract was fake, to deceive Su anyone. But this imperial decree is real. Shenli, Page E, have licked blood on the blade my entire life, navigating through schemes and plots. I never thought there would be someone who, at my most miserable and desperate moment, would jump into my coffin and grasp my life. You saved my life and my heart. Stay and be the real Duchess of Zhen. Not a deal, but because I want to marry you. I looked at the sincere, burning sincerity in his eyes. The ice in my heart melted bit by bit. In truth, ever since that snowy night when I performed acupuncture on him inside the coffin, when we stood shoulder to shoulder facing thousands of troops and 10,000 horses, I had already known I couldn't leave. In this world, there would never be a second person who could understand my ambition, my ruthlessness, and also my weakness, just like him. All right. I curved my lips into the most genuine smile I had shown in months. However, I have one condition beforehand. The management of the entire Duke's mansion belongs to me. The money belongs to me. And you belong to me too, if you dare take a concubine. If you dare take a concubine, then let me stab you to death with one needle and lock you in the coffin forever, never to come out again. Pai Ji laughed and cut me off. In 10 days, the Duke of Zhen's mansion will hold a grand wedding. 10 miles of red silk will stretch across the capital's longest street. The dignity the Su family once denied me, Page E has returned to me tenfold, hundredfold. On the wedding night, inside the bridal chamber, Page E lifted my veil. His gaze was so tender it could drip water. Madam, this time we don't have to stay inside the coffin anymore. My face flushed as I punched him lightly. Page E. Thank you for letting me live as myself. Outside the window, the moonlight was as gentle as water. The lonely child who had fled barefoot through the snow that night had finally, at this moment, found the home that truly belonged to her. The story ends here, but it leaves me with one final lesson. In a world where power devours the weak, if the powerless rely only on kindness, they will soon become sacrifices. To survive, you must stay clear-headed. To stand firm, you must possess real strength and ironclad evidence. Justice does not come by itself. It requires wisdom to set traps, courage to step over fear, and discipline to draw the line against evil. Alliances may begin as transactions. Feelings may bloom in desperate straits, but never trade your life for blind trust. Final lesson: never let yourself be locked inside the coffin of fate. When the lid closes, be cold enough to carve your own path out. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share Raccoon Tale to help more stories come to life. See you in the next tale.